I've spent a lot of time in the gym over the years, but it has become abundantly clear to me recently that just because I've gotten strong in the gym does not necessarily mean that I have gotten strong out there on the course. This video is about a change in how I'm approaching my fitness specifically for the game of golf in an effort to move better, get a little faster, and at the end of the day, hopefully put up some better scores out there on the course. This is the start of day one's protocol of my 3-part series in an effort to do exactly that. Let's get started. Welcome to Cloudy Coast Golf Co. My name is Johnny, and this is day one of a 3-part series, like I had mentioned, in an effort to move better, get faster, and at the end of the day, hopefully get a little bit better at the game of golf. This protocol was ultimately designed with 3 main goals in mind: better range, better strength and rotation, and then better speed. For those of us out there that are ultimately living normal everyday lives. This programming is going to allow you to complete some or all of the protocol, depending on what your schedule allows, to make imperfect progress towards these goals, and then at the end of the day, learning a little bit something about yourself or your game along the way. Each of these 3 days are going to include elements of mobility, strength, coordination, and speed. And just like the game of golf, we're going to measure success by incremental progress that is ultimately going to be reliant on consistency in how we're approaching our practice. Now let's talk about what you're going to need to kick things off when starting this protocol. The first element is going to be time. Like learning anything new, whether that's the types of movements that you're going to be doing either in the mobility block or in the strength portion, that time is ultimately going to be reduced as you start to understand the flow and the movements themselves. And then as time goes on, you'll become more efficient as you work through each of these routines. Ideally, each routine is designed to be completed in around a 1-hour time frame. So just keep that in mind if you are a little frustrated at the beginning. Try to stick it out and just know that you are going to move through things faster as you just get more familiar with the different parts of the protocol. Next up, you're going to need to have a general understanding in terms of how to move smartly through the different types of movements that I'm going to have in each of these days' protocols. And this is something, if you do find yourself hesitant about, the simple answer is just don't do it. There are a ton of fantastic resources out there, and whether that's at your local level in terms of having a personal trainer or somebody who's TPI certified to show you and give you guidance and direction and how to move through these movements correctly or cater them to your specific movement limitations. The biggest thing you can do is just leave your ego at the door and don't push yourself past something that you shouldn't be doing without the guidance of a professional. Lastly is going to be access to some basic gym equipment or the ability to hop online and grab a couple things in order to do this by yourself at home. You're going to be looking for some stuff like dumbbells, kettlebells, or elastic bands. Check the links down below for a list of items that will help get you there. And by doing so, you'll help support this channel at the same time. Additionally, if this is something that you are interested in implementing into your fitness protocol, make sure you stay tuned to the end. I'll include a couple of different frames that you'll be able to screenshot in order to save for yourself at home and follow along next time you go to the gym. All right, first up for today, and this is going to be the case for each day of this training protocol, is going to be the mobility block. For those of you at home who maybe have not gone through a particular fitness routine or haven't spent a whole lot of time working on mobility or soft tissue mobilization, this is going to be a foundational part of any strength or speed training protocol, because if you can't get to the end range that you ultimately need to get to, the strength or speed is going to be limited by not having enough room to ultimately work at the end of the day. If you haven't watched my video on the full warm-up routine, you can click here now or follow the link down below in the description after you watch this video. It will walk you through the full mobility protocol, will give you a better understanding as to the key points and focus for each of the different types of movements that we're going to be working through in this mobility block. And then at the end of the day, it has a variety of links that you can use in order to develop a better understanding as to what it is that you're looking to get out of each of those individual movements. The resources that you're ultimately going to need are not that extensive. You're going to need just a block in order to put in between your legs, a foam pad or a towel in order to raise and lower your heels, an elastic band or some kind of hip band in order to have resistance with, and then a sliding disc or a piece of cardboard in order to complete a couple of the movements that require you to do so. A fair warning to those of you at home, even though this is not the most sexy thing to have to go through when you're looking at a training protocol, this is foundational to the success of the strength and the speed portions that we're gonna be going into next. So I highly recommend that you give this a fair shake and allow yourself to try to implement this in your day-to-day. And for me personally, if it comes down to it and I don't have time to either go through the strength or the speed aspect of things, I prioritize going through a protocol like this or something that I've done through TPI and trying to make sure that my body has the space to move effectively when I do have the time to work in those strength or speed elements of my game. So here we go through the mobility block. To that full range rotation. And once you're there, you can pitch. All right, so hopefully after moving through the mobility piece, everything's feeling pretty good to go. For me personally, I can say that I tend to feel a little more grounded after getting things moving, especially in the lower body and in that hip area as well. So that should have you pretty keyed up to work through the strength part here prior to getting into the speed training at the end of day one. So for the strength block in day one's protocol here, you're gonna need a couple different pieces of equipment. A lot of the things in the protocols that I've written are interchangeable from an equipment standpoint. So whether it's a cable machine that you have access to, or you're gonna be utilizing bands in replacement of the cable machine, just use your imagination and try to find the best intention in order to complete that movement pattern that you're ultimately going to go for. So that's going to be kettlebells in place of dumbbells, or a single heavy kettlebell in place of 2 dumbbells, whatever it is that you need to do, just try to use your imagination. And again, that goes back to the having experience and how you're going to move through each of these individual types of movements. All right, first up here is going to be a straight leg RDL, and you can use, again, dumbbells or kettlebells for this part of the movement. If you were limited and you want to use a barbell, you could do that as well. The goal for this is going to be 8 to 10 reps throughout 3 sets, alternating back and forth with each leg. The goal is going to be a slightly staggered stance with that lead leg a little more straight than that, and that trail leg being predominantly for support. The goal here is just going to be, just like in that mobility protocol that we're going for, that hip hinge movement, and trying to keep that leg as straight as possible with the back straight as well, working to that range. You don't have to go all the way to the ground as a measurement of success. The goal is to feel that in your hamstrings and really try to pull through that whole range of motion, locking out at the top from that hamstring and that glute. So I've got 2 35-pound dumbbells here. Again, leave your ego at the door with whatever it comes out to. Whatever is going to ultimately allow you to complete the movement while maintaining good posture and good technique, that's going to be the end goal. So 8 to 10 reps per side, and then we're going to switch for 3 sets. All right, so once you work your way through the single leg RDLs, you're gonna pull a bench out and we're gonna be getting into Bulgarian split squats. If you haven't done this before, it is a great movement to isolate strength on your individual leg, and it can really highlight deficiencies with one leg compensating for the other. I know it's an issue that I have had a huge amount in the training that I have done over the years. So it's a great opportunity to challenge yourself with whatever weight that you are doing. If you are unsure as to which weight you should be using, start with nothing. And honestly, it's gonna be a good movement for you. And it'll also help with good range of motion, opening that hip with that rear leg extended as well. So again, we're challenging that coordination piece and we're challenging ultimately that strength piece in these parts of the protocol. So for me, again here, I've got two 35-pound dumbbells, again, interchangeable with kettlebells, either one or two, heavy single, where you're gonna hold it. Use your imagination, find that stimulus that you ultimately need to get the most out of this strength training. And then the goal is to really get it in that leg that's doing the work through the back into the hamstring and then especially into the glute area when you are doing that push. So for me, in terms of setting this up, because it can be a little awkward sometimes, I always like to start with the back of my legs up against the bench. From there, I'm just gonna take a moderate step out. Doesn't have to be anything too crazy. And I'm just gonna raise that rear leg. I have to do a pointed toe because I got some range of motion issues with my feet, but if you can get that foot on that bench like so, advise you do so, that's great for you. Otherwise, really working hard to maintain that knee in line with the toe. You want that lower leg to be perpendicular-ish with the ground below, and then you're just gonna be moving backwards into that near parallel position with that thigh and coming up. Definitely don't be shy to adjust if you need to, just getting that spacing that you need on that lead leg to get into a good deep squat with that lead leg. So 8 to 10 reps per side here, alternating back and forth, and we're gonna do 3 sets total. All right, so coming off the RDLs and the Bulgarian split squats, you should be feeling pretty solid through the legs at this point in time. Now we're gonna start working up the chain a bit and getting into some rotational strength movements from here. So now a couple different options in terms of what kind of implement you want to utilize. I have an Encore system here, which is a recent add in the home gym. I'm a huge fan of it. Currently not an affiliate. I'm hoping to get there one day, but highly recommend them. It's been great. It came as a recommendation from my chiropractor, and it is an awesome tool to have here in the gym. Additionally, if you have crossover symmetry in the past and you have some bands available to you, that's also something that you can use in order to work through this, this part of the rotational strength phase. So the goal here, and if you have a straight bar, you can attach that to the end, or if you're working off of a cable machine, you can break that down as well. And one of the biggest things to highlight anytime that you're selecting a weight, if you find yourself losing balance, go down in weight. It's as easy as that. If you are losing your footing in trying to do any of these rotational things, it's highlighting the fact that you are lacking strength through that movement plane or the stability to move under that load. So just back it off. And this is a multi-month or year process to try to improve through these different elements. So just look 6 months down the road in terms of how much stronger you're gonna be by having that solid foundation out the gate. So here we're working through the straight bar split stance rotations. That outside leg is gonna be placed forward here with that rear leg staggered back. You're gonna be parallel to where the cable is ultimately coming out with a good width ultimately on that bar. And all it's gonna be is nice and solid through the trunk, hips square. In that centered position, you're just gonna rotate away and then bring it back to the middle. Almost lost my balance there a little bit. So just rotate away, back to the middle, nice and controlled. 8 to 10 each side, alternating back and forth for 3 sets. All right, so coming off the rotational core work, you should be feeling pretty good through the side body there. I know I definitely am feeling it back in kind of that oblique QL area especially. The next part here, we're gonna go into a bent over row, incorporating a scap retraction in the row. So I like to have something to brace against anytime I am doing something like this. And that just helps me stay a little bit focused on the actual shoulder and scap movement itself. So here, I like to just be staggered, lead foot forward towards the bench, and that's gonna be the same hand that's ultimately bracing up against it with whatever implement you wanna use. And you could use cable, you could use dumbbells, kettlebells, whatever you find you have available to you. And so from here, the goal is gonna be to allow that shoulder to pronate. Think of rounding the backside of that shoulder a little bit. We're gonna retract that shoulder into a good, stable, strong position. And then we're gonna pull into that row, feeling that squeeze in the scapula in the backside of that shoulder. So think if you're trying to pinch those two shoulder blades together, right? Like where that squeeze is gonna occur in the backside of that scap. So with that, it's gonna be 3 sets, alternating back and forth, 8 to 10 reps, again, per side. All right, getting into the next part here, we got another piece in terms of rotational core work, and this is gonna be a Pallof press and then incorporating a little bit of trunk rotation with that. So ideally, if you have a cable machine or if you're gonna be using the bands again, either one of them, the goal would be to have that set up about chest height, and that's gonna be in the best position for this movement to be on plane about as much as possible there. So the goal here is gonna be a nice staggered stance. Just kind of think your normal like driver position would be a good footing. And the goal is you're gonna pull it out. Palm is gonna be on that inboard hand. Okay, you're gonna bring your fists together. And then from here, it's just gonna be kind of like you're pointing a gun almost, if you're familiar. So it's gonna be from the chest, pointing straight out, okay? And then you're gonna incorporate a little bit of trunk rotation back to center, okay? Bring it back in, that's 1. So it'd be point, trunk rotation, back to center, in, 2. You're gonna be doing 10 to 12 each side here. I would advise just go with a lighter weight to start it out and then go through both sides. Again, highlighting the point of if you do find yourself losing balance, it'd be a good point there to just maybe go down a little bit in weight. All right, so last up on the list here for the day 1 strength protocol portion of it. If you watch the mobility video in its entirety, I highlighted a couple movements in there that are maybe a little bit difficult to do in a public setting. This is gonna be one of those as well, but just own it and embrace the fact that you're working on bettering yourself at the end of the day. So for this part of it, a glute band or a hip band is gonna be needed. This is my wife's. She has a variety of these, so I've just been stealing them from her. But something like this, or they have exclusively elastic ones as well that you can use. I will include a link down below in the description to pick those up. They're super cheap. You can go through them relatively quickly. I typically travel with one in my bag when I'm working as well, just to have access to be able to do this on the road, because turning the glutes on at the end of the day is hugely important for just your stability overall, but then especially foundationally for the golf swing itself. Just being able to connect everything from the ground through the hip and then ultimately transferring that power up and down the chain. It's super necessary to have a good solid foundation in the glute. So from here, you got 2 different options. You can either put that band just below the knee, or if you're partial to doing it just above the knee, to each their own. This is gonna be 2 minutes. The first minute is gonna be a bridge builder, I call it. And basically it's gonna be in a glute bridge position. You're gonna just be cycling through the full range of motion in that bridge. So that's gonna be working all the way through getting that glute fully extended to just basically tapping it on the ground and then working on that pelvis position throughout the entire range. So goal is you're gonna get flat on your back here with those feet just about perpendicular to the ground to your best of your ability. And depending on the resistance level in that band, could either be terrible or maybe a little bit easier on you. So just meter which band you're using ultimately based on that resistance level. And from here, we're just gonna start the clock, and it's gonna be 1 minute, tucking that glute underneath, or excuse me, tucking that pelvis underneath, and then working to that full range of motion there. So keeping your shoulders on the ground, and then we're just gonna be cycling through that full range. You're gonna feel a good amount of resistance through those knees, trying to pull in with that band. You're gonna counteract that, picking that up in the hip, and then when you're squeezing at the top, really feeling that in the glute there. So you're gonna run through a full minute from there. All right, now once you find yourself done with that full minute, you're gonna go ahead and bring it up into a full bridge. And now again, holding this at the very top, and this is a good opportunity for you to really work on that pelvis position. If you find yourself kind of collapsed down, maybe a little cupped on the front side of the hip, really work to squeeze that glute, rotate that pelvis underneath you a little bit more, and try to be nice and aligned. So maybe a little bit of a cue in terms of getting that lower abdomen kind of engaged to help pull that in, but especially getting the glute. And if you're not feeling it at this point in time, which I absolutely am, I would highly recommend maybe going up a little bit on the band tension, because that's gonna help you get a little bit more out of this. And again, this is the last part of the strength routine. So really push through this, try not to come out of it. I know it's tough. I'm having a heck of a time right now, but this is the last part of it. And then we're gonna be getting into the speed training protocol after this. So great job. All right, getting into the speed block now for day 1 of this protocol. And funny enough, I mentioned it earlier on in this video, I ended up getting interrupted after the strength portion of this filming. And it just highlights the fact that get through as much of this as your life really allows. The whole thing is gonna be consistency over a long duration of time in order to show measurable success week in and week out. So I did have a chance to get back into it this evening. I'm gonna complete the swing speed portion of this protocol. I've got the stack system here, but grab your swing speed device trainer of choice, go through your protocol on the back end of going through the mobility and the strength portion. Ideally, if all the stars align for you at home. And then if you don't have something like this available to you, I do have a link down in the description, and you can use the code on the screen as well if you are interested in getting into the stack system, which I highly recommend. But that being said, we're gonna get into this part of the protocol and then get finished up with day 1. All right, set 2, 105. Set 3, last 3. All right, set 4, 195 max. And that's a wrap for day 1 of this protocol. I'm excited to get this information out to those of you at home as I work to try to make this speed, mobility, and strength training in golf-specific formats a little bit more accessible for everyday people out there. And ideally, if everything goes to plan through the next couple of days of this programming, everything is gonna stack on top of each other as time goes on. And the more consistency and the more time that we build on with these different movements and increasing our range of motion, ultimately increasing our strength in those individual positions, will ideally improve how everything else is moving on the golf course and out in our everyday lives. So with that being said, and if you have not already, make sure you go back and watch the mobility video that preceded day one's protocol to help give you a more robust understanding in terms of what each of those movements are ultimately focusing on and how to get the most out of that time that you're putting in to the first block that is going to be foundational throughout this entire process. And day 2 and day 3 will be coming out here shortly. You'll also be able to keep tabs on that through the playlist on the channel. Additionally, if you find yourself still watching this video, as always, thank you for tuning in. Questions, comments, things that have worked for you in this space specifically, or if you think you're going to implement this in your own weekly routine, let me hear it down below, and make sure to keep me posted on how things are progressing as you're implementing this protocol. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.